it wasn't a mission to preserve the old order, but to build a new one, one that could withstand shocks, deepen integration and cooperation, and really deliver prosperity for all citizens. And it's a reminder that nostalgia isn't a strategy. We have to change. And at this moment of transformation, we must turn the many challenges into change. We know there can't be security without economic prosperity, no true security without economic prosperity, but also no prosperity without resilience. We're in a world where shocks are flowing across borders, whether it's through climate change, whether it's through conflict, and we know that resilience is built through a combination of tough choices at home and smart cooperation with like-minded countries abroad. And that, in a small way, but building from that, is part of the objective of these meetings. This G7 is to begin to build that new era of cooperation, one that promotes long-term resilience over short-term efficiency, mais plutôt son commencement. J'ai eu des échanges pendant les 2 derniers jours, des échanges productifs avec 21 dirigeants de tous les continents. Over the past few days, Canada has worked with our G7 partners to determine where we can cooperate, build resilience and lasting prosperity. And that's the approach that Canada is taking as we negotiate a new economic and security partnership with the United States. And as I've stressed repeatedly, we will take all the time necessary to do that, but no more. And yesterday, President Trump and I agreed to continue to pursue those negotiations, intensify them towards a deal within the coming 30 days. And so the President and I, as well as our respective cabinet ministers and officials, will remain in close contact in the coming days to deliver on that timeline. Over the past days, also met with global leaders who will help determine what is success in the new global system that will emerge over time. And underpinning each of those discussions was, I stress, Canada's readiness to work to create new international partnerships to promote a world that's more secure, prosperous, just, and free. We're looking to deepen alliances with stable democracies who share our interests, our values, our principles, and who look to lead. We look to lead with many of the resources, including human resources and human capital, that the world wants and the values to which so many aspire. And it's those values of freedom, of democracy, and of justice that are behind Canada's unwavering support for a secure, a free and sovereign Ukraine. And this morning I shared with President Zelensky and G7 partners what Canada is doing moving forward in multiple respects with measures to support Ukraine in its struggle in Russia's unjustified and barbaric war. With our international partners, we're launching a major new package of sanctions on individuals, on companies, on vessels, the Shadow Fleet, to exert maximum pressure on Russia. We're also sending over $2 billion in funding for drones, ammunition, armored vehicles to help Ukrainians defend their territory, as well as a $2.3 billion loan to help rebuild the infrastructure in that country. And take a moment to reiterate our condolences given the barbarism witnessed overnight in Kyiv caused by Russia. G7 leaders also reiterated our commitment to the pursuit of peace and stability in the Middle East. Make clear that Iran is the principal source of regional instability and terror. And we've been consistently clear that Iran can never have a nuclear weapon. We urge that the resolution of the Iranian crisis leads to a broader de-escalation of hostilities, including a ceasefire in Gaza. Tout au long de ce sommet, nous avons également rassemblé des pays autour des défis et des opportunités les plus urgents de notre époque. Ce sont des domaines qui exigent une coopération internationale et dans lesquels le Canada est bien placé pour jouer un rôle de chef de file. I'm pleased to share that G7 nations in the past 2 days agreed to move forward in cooperation on several key priorities. We're going to work with our partners in the G7 and beyond, a number of the countries are here today, to develop critical metals and minerals in order to build independence from non-market economies. And to that end, we will create a critical minerals production alliance, a G7-led strategic initiative to stockpile and develop critical minerals needed for defense and technology, including a range from germanium, gallium, graphite, rare earths. We also struck several agreements, accords from the aforementioned critical mineral supply chains to adapting, powering, and sharing artificial intelligence, to collaborating on quantum technologies, to preventing, fighting, and recovering from wildfires, something we feel intensely, obviously, here in the prairies, tackling foreign interference and transnational repression, countering migrant smuggling by dismantling transnational organized crime. Next week, we will shift from addressing threats to economic security to addressing threats and addressing issues with respect to global defense and security at the NATO summit and at the Canada-EU summit. We recognize that our leadership will be defined not just by the strength of our values, but the value of our strength.
Extension, qu'est-ce que ça dit sur le G7, le fait que M. Trump préfère aller gérer la crise au Moyen-Orient dans la Situation Room plutôt qu'avec ses partenaires?
C'est difficile de gérer une crise militaire. C'est exceptionnel ici à Kananaskis, en Alberta, mais dans cette situation grave, une situation militaire, une situation très fluide, très volatile, c'était l'opinion de M. Trump que ça vaut mieux d'être à Washington. Et je comprends absolument sa décision. Et, c'est correct. C'est une situation exceptionnelle à ce moment-ci. OK.
Bonjour, Émilie Bergeron, la presse canadienne. Monsieur Carney, je sais que vous venez de dire que vous mentionnez l'Ukraine dans votre déclaration en tant que président du sommet, mais il y a eu des négociations pour avoir une déclaration conjointe entièrement dédiée à la guerre en Ukraine et ça n'a pas eu lieu. Les États-Unis, de ce qu'on a entendu, n'ont pas signé. Alors, qu'est-ce que ça dit sur l'unité au sein du G7?
Rien.
Pourquoi?
Parce que c'est la déclaration dont le résumé de la présidente.
Mais je parle pas de ça.
J'étais là, madame. J'étais là, je suis la présidente. C'est moi le président. J'étais là avec Monsieur le Président Trump. Nous avons discuté chaque mot dans cette résumé.
We just get you on English on.
Hey.
It's just because
just to be clear, in English.
Like the joint statement specifically on Ukraine.
The joint statement specifically on
Ukraine. No, it's in your presidential statement or your chair statement, but it is not signed by the 7 leaders. Why is that the case? What happened with the United States?
As I said in French, rien, nothing. Okay? This was discussed by all 7 leaders. Well, it's more than 7 because we have the presidents of the European Commission and the presidents of the European Council last night at dinner. These exact words, and they're in my chair's summary. We had, as I said in French, we had a declaration given the exceptional and fast-moving situation in Iran. We concentrated on that, and as a specific one, I held this for my chair's summary. I honestly, look, there would be, if you want a nuance or if you want a sense, there would be things that some of us, Canada included, would say above and beyond what was said in the chair's summary. But the recognition of the importance of the initiative of President Trump to achieve a lasting peace, absolutely agreed. That we are resolute in pursuing all options to maximize pressure on Russia, including financial sanctions. Agreed. That we recognize that Ukraine alone has committed to an unconditional ceasefire. Agreed. And that we all agreed that Russia must do the same.
In your meeting with Prime Minister Modi, I wanted to ask you, what did you say to him about the murder of Canadian Sikh activist Hardeep Singh Nijjar?
We have had a discussion, the Prime Minister and I, about the importance of having the law enforcement to law enforcement dialogue, which is not just dialogue, cooperation directly. The importance of addressing transnational repression, as I noted, including when we met, and obviously there is a judicial process that's underway, and I need to be careful about further commentary. En français, nous avons eu une discussion en ce qui concerne la coopération qui continue de l'enforcement de la loi, la lutte contre la répression transnationale. Il y a un processus de loi qui se déroule maintenant et je dois être gardé avec mes mots sur cela.
I just want to be clear, though. Yes or no, did you bring up the murder?
I refer to my previous answer.
Canada has sent mixed messages in the past on our willingness to supply energy to allies, particularly LNG, to our allies in Europe and Asia. So what are you telling our G partners now about what Canada can do to secure supply? And is it very different from your predecessor's message?
I'll just look forward. As you know, or I believe you would, most Canadians do, we view that Canada has a unique opportunity to become an energy superpower. That's in all forms of energy. Would very much, to go to your specific question, would very much include LNG. We're seeing the opening very shortly. We just had opening of one of the major LNG projects, partially Indigenous owned, as you know. LNG Canada is about to be functioning, the largest LNG investment that we've seen. There is more that's possible, and there have been a number of discussions, including here, about potential LNG partnerships. So we look forward to those. As well, there have been a number of discussions, and I'll refer back to one of the decisions at this summit around Canada's immense potential to be a supplier of critical metals and minerals, rare earths. There was. This is my point to bring out my prop. Which can you see this? You can't. But this is the magnet that President von der Leyen circulated, which is formed in Estonia by a Canadian company, and it is the only such magnet made outside of China right now. And of course, building that out with rare earth materials in Canada, this is one of many examples that we can supply. So being an energy superpower is conventional, it's critical minerals, it's clean energy, it's nuclear, it's hydro, it's all those aspects. And I would say a tremendous interest in that. And my government, alongside provincial governments, but of course at the core, the private sector is looking forward to developing those in the interests of shared prosperity.
I wanted to ask about this 30-day window now that you've set up with President Trump. Can you explain, was this your idea for a 30-day window? Are you trying to put a deadline in place? And is retaliation still, do you move to retaliation if this 30 days expires without a deal? What's the rationale here, and what happens if you don't get to a deal?
Well, look, there are many aspects of the relationship with the United States, and many of your good questions have touched on them, from security, border security, commercial, financial, otherwise. And we don't want to, with respect to the specifics around specific tariffs, there's a certain amount of information that's necessary. There's certain decisions that can be taken given that information and given the relative perspectives. And quite often in negotiations, having a form of deadline is helpful to concentrate the mind. And that can be the case here. The teams are working well. There's exchange of information, exchange of ideas, and having that focus will be helpful. What was the second part of your question?
Retaliation. You have not retaliated for doubling of steel and aluminum.
No, we have not yet. We retain the flexibility in order to do so, and we are looking. But I will say one thing which is related to that, which is we are looking very actively about the risks from third party or third country flows of steel, and mainly steel, but possibly aluminium, into Canada. And the need to provide protections from that. So we're looking at the modalities and ways of doing that, and we're very alive to that. That's the first. We're also, of course, looking to provide liquidity and other support to the firm. So, look, we have consistently responded in the best interest of the Canadian industry and Canadian workers when there have been these illegal and unjustified tariffs put in place. We do so in a way tailored to each situation. We have multiple tools with which we can respond, and some of those, as this evolves, relate as much to other countries' potential dumping of steel, excess steel into Canada as it does the U.S. So we're looking to calibrate appropriately, but we'll do what's necessary, and in short term. And I wouldn't necessarily look to a 30-day window to in that response.
On the 30 days, are we expecting to see a full deal announced in 30 days, a blueprint of a deal? And has Donald Trump ever given you any indication that he is willing to remove all tariffs on Canadian goods, as the Canadian delegation and yourself have requested?
Well, it's a negotiation, so that's our position. And at present, the United States may have a slightly different position, but we'll pursue one that is in the best interests of certainly Canada and aligned with U.S. interests.
Your meeting with Prime Minister Narendra Modi, how would you describe that? And what are concrete steps that you and the Prime Minister of India discussed to take this relationship forward, that it reaches its true potential, sir?
Well, I think several things, if I may say. I would say the meeting, the fact of the meeting, let me say a few things. First, just in terms of Prime Minister Modi's attendance at the G7. Prime Minister Modi has attended every G7 since 2018. That is a reflection of the size of the Indian economy, the dynamism of the Indian economy, Indian technology, the leadership position India plays in a host of venues from G20 and beyond. So as chair of the G7, hosting the Prime Minister in that context is entirely natural, entirely consistent. I fully expect the Prime Minister of India will be in attendance at the G7 next year, for example, in France. First thing. Secondly, in terms of the bilateral relationship, which is your question, I think the meeting today was important, but I would describe it as foundational, as a necessary first step, an exchange of views, frank, open exchange of views around law enforcement, transnational repression as two examples, an agreement to provide the necessary foundations to begin to rebuild a relationship based on mutual respect, sovereignty, trust. And that begins with what was agreed, you asked for concrete, which is that we will move to appoint high commissioners again. And let me just finish by putting that in context, which is there are very deep ties of people and businesses between Canada and India. It's well known. It's part of your point about where the relationship could go. And they are not served at present by consular services, in effect, certainly by high commissioners. And it's necessary to have that level of service as a basis on which to build out, again, in the context of respect for sovereignty and to begin to realize the potential of the relationship. And we will, we're both committed to work towards that, but there's a lot of work that will need to be done.